Welcome to another edition of Teacher Talk Tuesday. And my name is Charlotte Bell, and I am an EC Pre-K teacher. And I have with me today my guest, Mr. Mikeal Barnes II, who is also an EC teacher. Welcome to our podcast, Teacher Talk Tuesday.
Thank you
Welcome.
Thank you for
Well, today's topic is behavioral labeling and parent awareness. And this is a sensitive subject, and it is a subject that is near and dear to me because I want teachers to understand how sometimes we place labels on students that can be biased. We place labels on students that can be based off of our personal beliefs, off of our past, or maybe off of some things that we may have experienced in our lives. And I just want to delve into it to get a better understanding. And so I brought in me a guest today to see if he can shed some light on that.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little about your experience working with children and families?
Sure. Yes, I can. As Mrs. Bell has stated, I am an EC teacher. I have been teaching in in the public school system setting for about 2 years now. I have been teaching rather for the last 5 years. I did 3 years at the Boys and Girls Club where I was over second and third grade curriculum. And so when it comes to this question and this topic as it pertains to behavior labeling, I have seen it firsthand. And with that being said, I will say that it can be very detrimental, not only to the students, not only to the staff, but also to the parents. Because parents take it on. This is something you're saying that my child is this way. And that's not something that a parent wants to necessarily hear that is negative about their child. And so that's where I stand.
Awesome.
To that.
So how would you describe your overall philosophy when it comes to understanding student behaviors?
Okay. When it comes to understanding student behaviors, you have to look at the overall student. You can't look at just what is presented in front of you. You also have to take into account their background, what's going on at home, what's going on in their personal lives. But then in this day and age with technology and social media, you also have to take into account everything that is going on online, because these kids are so into social media that it has become a daily part of their lives. And so you also have to take that into account. And when you look at the overall and you look at the bigger picture on the broader spectrum, you can tend to understand why a child does what they do and how to be able to help them in the best way.
Okay. So when you hear the term behavioral labeling, what does that mean to you?
Behavioral labeling, what does that mean to me? In my own personal eyesight, I would say it is very negative. Behavioral labeling essentially is saying, hey, in third grade, this child did X, Y, Z, so we're expecting the exact same when they go to fourth grade. Anything can happen. Kids don't always stay the same. Yes, you have some who have different personalities, but I think as a teacher, you also have to be multifaceted as it pertains to understanding how to deal with different kids differently. Not so much as just from an EC standpoint, but also when you look at children who are neurotypical, you have to understand that, again, going back to the first question, there are a lot of different factors that go into why a child does what they do and how they move. And so you have to realize and understand that as a teacher, you have to be able to maneuver and finagle at times when it comes to different kids because you have to know how to properly engage with the certain child in question, or you have to know one person. I know some parents say, I could tell one of my kids to sit down and they wouldn't move, but then the other one I have to tell them over and over and over again. Then I got to threaten them and say, hey, and then they stop. It's just understanding the child and realizing that some children need just a little bit more than another.
Awesome. Well, that's a good point that you brought up, because during my research, that was one of the things that I had discussed with another individual. Because when we put these labels on children without fully understanding them, without fully understanding their background or their home environment life, we tend to place labels on them that will follow them. And that was one of my main concerns. I placed a label on a child from what I experienced with them in first grade. So now here I am, a second grade teacher or a third grade teacher, and I'm expecting the same behavior pattern because the label has already been put on the child from when they were in the first grade. Not having a full look into why the behavior is happening. Sometimes, in my experience as a teacher, a behavior pattern that I experienced with one of my students was when it was time for this individual to read, she would never want to read. And she would do everything. She would be up and down and doing whatever. And then I just looked at her one day and I said, can you see? And she looked at me and she said, Miss Charlotte, I can't read the words. So we have already labeled her as a problem child, but the baby can't see. She can't read.
It's a deeper problem. It's a deeper issue.
She needed eyeglasses. And once, me and mom had a conference and I felt comfortable, once I spoke with my director and I brought it to her attention, mom was like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. I just thought she just didn't want to read, or she just didn't want to cooperate. She couldn't read. So once they got her eyes checked and she got her eyeglasses, I didn't have any more problems out of her from then forward. So we have to be careful as teachers when we place labels on kids, especially behavioral labeling. Now we know it's different when it comes to kids that are exceptional, the exceptional children, because then there's autism in play, comes into play. Then there's developmentally delayed that comes into play. So we have to look at the overall picture. But to just have an incident or a pattern of behavior with the child, we need to make sure that we are looking further into that. Because it could be something simple as needing a pair of glasses.
That's
awesome. Oh my goodness. All right, so how does knowing a student has been labeled behaviorally affect your approach to teaching or classroom management in your room?
I like that question. And I think, honestly, it depends on, again, the teacher.
Because you have to know your students.
You have to know your students. And you also not only know them, but you have to build a relationship with them.
Good
because once you build that relationship with a child, then all of those walls will start to break down and they'll let you in. It's just like any other person. If I don't know you, I'm not going to necessarily just
welcome you in
and be all in. Although there are some that will just take you in when they first meet you. But for most people, it takes time. And so even with kids, what we have to remember are kids are not adults. Kids are still learning. Kids are still developing, not only in their physical, but also in their mental and their psychological. And all of that goes into play as it pertains to the behavioral labeling. But to answer your question, I would say, well, first, I want you to say the question again so that I make sure I answer it correctly.
How does knowing a student has been labeled behaviorally affect your approach to teaching or classroom management in your room?
Okay. In my room personally, I don't look at what the last teacher says. Now, granted, we look at the IEPs, we look at, all the things, but when a student comes into my room, it is a fresh start. I am not looking at them as Johnny Appleseed who didn't listen, who was up and down, who ran in and out of the classroom last year. I am now looking at Johnny Appleseed with a fresh pair of eyes. Because what happens is once the behavioral labeling comes into play, what we do subconsciously is we automatically start looking for kids to start doing things. And that's one thing. Yeah, and that's one thing that I learned, especially at the Boys and Girls Club. And Mr. Robbie Burnett was my supervisor, and that's one thing that he always told us. He said that you can't always look at a child and always get on them, because if you're always getting on a child, that's what they're going to be expecting. And so if they're expecting that from you, then that wall is going to be up. They're not going to listen. They're going to be defiant. And so what you have to do is have a fresh pair of eyes. It's just like looking at a new car. Why am I going to go and look at a new car, but then looking at what's wrong? No, I'm going to look at a new car expecting and with faith that, hey, everything in this car is going to run correctly. Everything is going to be functioning how it's supposed to, how it was made to. It's going to run smooth. I'm going to have great tires, great service, because that's what I'm looking for with a new car. Now, if I'm looking at a used car, then I'm looking for the imperfections. And the same thing comes into play when it comes to children. If I'm looking at a child from a used car standpoint, then I'm going to be looking for the imperfections, rather than looking at it from a new car perspective, where you're just like, okay, this is a new car, everything's going to be perfect. And so in my classroom, again, fresh eyes. Every student that comes into my classroom each year, fresh eyes, fresh, clean slate. I can look at the IEPs, I can read them, I can understand them. But at the same time, I was not that teacher. I don't know that experience that that teacher may have had, or what the child may have experienced with that teacher.
Because every teacher is different.
Every teacher is
different.
different.
Every teacher has a different teaching style and a different way of getting a child to understand something that may have been hard to understand, or they were frustrated. But then you have a new teacher that come in and they have a new way of teaching, and it's like, wow,
It's refreshing.
oh, okay. So having fresh eyes helps manage the classroom, your classroom.
It does.
Now, what if you have one that's just have behavior problems, period? How do you manage that in your classroom?
Well, as an EC teacher, you can kind of expect it, but you can't expect it to where you're always on high alert. Now with EC, you're going to be on high alert regardless, but you don't want to always, for lack of a better word, nitpick and look for, okay, Johnny Appleseed is stimming. I know he's about to do X, Y, and Z. Because in EC, what I have learned, what I have realized is that what a child may do one day may not be the same the next day. What they do 1 hour may not be the same thing they do in the next hour. You have to take it as it comes. You can't be expecting X, Y, and Z to happen, especially not in an EC classroom, because it is not your typical classroom.
So as it relates to parents being aware of behavioral labeling that can be placed upon a child by a teacher, how aware are parents of that process, and how crucial is it that they participate and have a sense of knowledge of what's taking place to understand what it is to label a child, or specifically their child?
Okay. I think 9 times out of 10, parents already know. whether they say it or not. A parent knows their child. And so, but what you also have to take into account is what a child displays at home, they might not display at school. And so,
and vice versa.
And this is very true. And so, what you have to realize and understand is parents aren't oblivious. And so, what you have to realize is that whether you tell them or not about a behavioral label, they already know based on the looks that teachers give their kids or give them when they come, especially at the beginning of the school year, when you come and you do the open house and you go and you meet the teacher. Parents automatically pick up on that when they walk through the door with that child and the new teacher sees. They already know because conversations are already had. And then you have some kids who, yes, they might have had a rough school year before, and so the parent is already aware because they might have been in the office multiple times, they might have been called multiple times. So parents are very aware, but I think also what we need from parents is a lot more involvement. I think we've gotten to a day and age where some parents have become a lot more laid back, and with
just
that,
let the teacher handle it, let the teacher deal with it, and whatever she say, that's what I'll go with.
But it's a two-way street because I can't help your child if you're not helping them at home, because I might have order in my classroom and your child might be an angel for me, might do X, Y, and Z for me, but go home and do something completely opposite.
So
because
it's
you
important
allow
to
it
have structure in the home,
and as well
structure
as
in the classroom.
Because you can't. It's okay. Imagine giving a kid a piece of candy, right? Mom says, "Oh, she can have the candy. She can have the," or grandparents, "She can have the candy. She can have the candy." But mom and dad are like, "No, she can't have the candy." But grandparents go behind mom and dad and they're like, "Here's this candy." Like, no, we have to be a united front, okay? She might can't have it right then and there, but she can have it later. There's a time and a place, as well as in the classroom. There's a time and a place. We have to be a united front, us as educators and parents, when it comes to these kids. Because if the kids say, because kids say all the time, I know I experienced it a lot in high school, where the rules were established at school, like, hey, you're not supposed to wear a hoodie, you're not supposed to wear a hat. But then the kids will say, "Oh, well, my mama bought me this. I'm going to wear this hat. I'm going to wear this hoodie. I'm going to do this X, Y, and Z because my mama let me. My mama let me." And that may be all well and fine at home, but there also has to be expectations as well as boundaries when it comes to being in a school setting from both educators and parents. We need
more parent-teacher collaboration.
Big PTA is a very necessary thing. Until I got into the public school system, I never understood it. I always heard about PTA meetings, but PTA, the Parent Teacher Association, they help the teachers to be able to help their kids. It's just like if you have a conference, if you're not coming and you're not conversing with your child's teacher, or a lot of these the new technologies, Class Dojo, if you're not communicating with me as the educator as I am communicating with you, whether it be sending a note home, messaging in Class Dojo, or calling for a conference, if you won't help me help your child, how do you expect for me to help your child? Parent involvement is very necessary. And I digress.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much for your time. I thank you for being open and honest, and also for being transparent.
Well, thank you for having me. I have enjoyed my time here and being able to hopefully impart some wisdom into those of you who might see this. And I want to say thank you for all that you are doing in our education community. And we wish you the best in your endeavors, and continue to be a great teacher.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, guess what, guys? This wraps up another edition of Teacher Talk Tuesday. See you later.
Bye.